Hello, all. My name is Doris, and I'm the host of the Knit and Pearl podcast. Today, however, is a bonus video about my heart health. I have my notes here so that I don't go off on tangents and talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. It is Heart Health Month, February, and I thought I would share my story. And this is kind of a weird setup. I'm filming on my iPad. I'm going to try to remember to keep looking at the camera. So, my heart diagnosis is that I have a history of atrial flutter, and I have atrial fibrillation. So I'm going to define that. I'm going to say that this is your atrium, which is the top part of your heart. I'm sorry if I'm looking, I want to make sure that you hear. And when it beats normally, the atrium goes boom, 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 boom. Okay, so when you are in atrial flutter, and the heart beats like this is a part of an electrical stimulation. And when your electrical stimulation is haywire, you might have something like an atrial flutter, which is like this. Your atrium just kind of like quivers and doesn't know what to do. And atrial fib is like, instead of atrial fibrillation is instead of like this, it's like an irregular heartbeat. And those two, atrial fib and atrial flutter, can put you at a risk for a stroke because the blood doesn't flow like it's supposed to in the heart. Anyway, those are my two diagnoses, and the best way that I can describe them to you. December of 2012, I was on layoff for work, so I was high stressed the whole month of December. I spent time online looking for a job and going through all the motions for, what's it called? Where you get paid when you're not working. Unemployment. This was the only time in my life I've ever been on unemployment. So you have to, jump through all the hoops. So it was high stress. January 5th, I got the call back to work. I was very excited, but that morning when I woke up, I felt like I had a cold symptoms. Rewind to the night before, I was in bed and I had a sharp pain in my chest. And I sat up in the bed, it was so bad. And I'm like, what is this? And I burped a couple times and I'm like, oh, it's just indigestion, so I thought. And I laid back down and went back to sleep. The next morning, got up, got called to work, that I could go to work, but it was in a building that I wasn't used to being in. And I had kind of cold symptoms. So, trying to make this short and concise. Ted and I decided to drive to the new building so I would know where it was. So we did that, and then we drove over to my old building to pick up my supplies and stuff so that I could work. All this time feeling like I had cold symptoms, and as we're driving from Rancho, my where I work now and where I was working then, to home, I kept saying, ugh, my chest feels funny. I've got to go to the Walgreens and get some cold medicine so I can go to work tomorrow. First time in a month, I got to go to work. So then we were going to also go out to eat. So we were driving by the place where we normally stop to eat. Ted was on the phone. So I thought, well, I'll just go down here to Walgreens and get my medicine, and then we can drive back to the vets. So went into Walgreens, still feeling like I had a cold and stuff. Went back and got, medicine like NyQuil and Dayquil and some cough drops, and I picked up a snack. Not heavy, okay, not a heavy thing. And as I get close to the checkout, I start feeling really, really tired, and my arms couldn't hold the stuff. It was so weird, and I'm just like, there was a line, so I went over to the cash register that wasn't open and put the stuff down and sit there for a minute. I'm like, oh, this is not good. I don't know what's going on. So when the line goes down and I can get up there, I grab my stuff, still feeling very weak, went over to the cash register and said, I really don't feel very well. Next thing I know, I am waking up on the floor, and the manager standing over me going, do we need to call the ambulance? And I'm like, no. And I get up, I try to pay for what is there and think, I don't know what I got, but I'm calling Ted on the cell phone. I said, Ted, I just passed out at the Walgreens. Ted, being blind, he said, Doris, just get to the car. Just get to the car and we'll take care of it. Got to the car, bought my items, but I don't know what I had. I hadn't eaten all day, or very little. So I got in the car and I got the snack that I'd gotten. And I'm like, maybe I just need to eat a snack. Shaking the whole, when you go through something like passing out at the Walgreens, just kind of like, whoa, what is going on? It wasn't safe for me to drive, so we called his son, went to the ER. I told Ted, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to go to the extended, or the urgent care, and he goes, you're going to the hospital. This is a good thing. Got into the ER, and I was feeling like I was going to pass out again, so Chris got the wheelchair, and we got in there, and I'm in the wheelchair. I tell the lady, I just passed out at the Walgreens, and my chest feels funny. That's, okay, so just can make this shorter. I went through all of the tests, everything I had. Obviously, EKGs. By the time I went from the ER to the hospital bed, I was already back in normal sinus rhythm. But, they run you through a battery of tests, and the last one was the heart cath, which was really scary. But everything was fine. My only problem is that the electrical current in my heart was not making my heart beat right. So I had to go to, and they call it electrocardiologist. Went there. At the time, I was only diagnosed with a flutter, one episode. The guy said, let's just do an ablation for the flutter. It's very simple. You'll be in and out of the hospital in one day, and you'll get to be off less on less medicines. Because I was on I don't think I was on a thinner. I think my thinner was the full aspirin and some other kind of heart medicine. So I said, cool. I mean, Ted and I talked, and yeah, we're going to do that. Got that done. But when I left the hospital after having that, I had more medicine than I did when I came in. I'm like, what is the story? So, long story short, that electrocardiologist wanted to play God and didn't tell us that after he did a flutter ablation, they had to shock me back in normal sinus rhythm because I was in atrial fib. But he didn't tell me. He didn't tell Ted or my brother. Anyway, I found a wonderful electrocardiologist who finally was the only one that told me, you're not going to die from having atrial fib or atrial fibrillation. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to die. Again, long story short, I was having episode after episode of AFib. When I was in atrial fib, I can't go to work until it flips back into normal sinus rhythm. I could barely walk across the room without feeling totally exhausted. So in December 2016, I had the ablation for atrial fib, which is a 4-hour procedure in the operating room, and you spend the night. Yeah, so I had that in December 2016, and I was atrial fib free until October of 2017. But that one was only 30 minutes, not 12 hours, because I also had an episode of AFib before my ablation that lasted over 12 hours, and I had to be cardioverted, which they take you into the ER. They give you the sleeping medicine. They put you out for like 5 minutes, and then they shock your heart back into normal sinus rhythm. That I only did one time that I didn't know, and another time when I did know. So I am so blessed, so healthy as far as my heart. I take 1 pill and 1 aspirin every day. I don't have to take blood thinners. My episodes are a lot less. So that is my heart health story. I hope that me sharing will help somebody else, Anyway, so when you are knitting red, you can think about me and think about others and think about heart health and be aware of people out there with heart health issues. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in a week for the Knit and Purl podcast. Bye, you guys.